I never thought watching my sister cross the finish line would become the most inspiring day of my life. When I arrived, the whispers started immediately. Then came the stares, the smirks, and finally, the laughter. She came alone, my sister, Bethany, announced with a mocking smile. The crowd erupted in laughter. Just as tears threatened to fall, the announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeaker, introducing a runner who defied all odds. 7 simple words echoed through the stadium. They said I'd never walk again. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra. Special for you! The marathon invitation arrived on a Tuesday, its bold letters stark against the digital screen. I traced my finger over the announcement of my sister Bethany's triumphant return to the race, years after a devastating accident threatened to end her athletic career. While most sisters would feel joy, I felt only dread pooling in my stomach. Growing up, Bethany had always been the golden child. She excelled in every sport, participated in every club imaginable, and always brought home the kind of accolades our parents proudly displayed. Meanwhile, I struggled to find my footing, choosing creative pursuits over athletics and navigating life at my own pace. "Don't forget to RSVP," my mother Carol said during our weekly video call, her voice carrying that familiar note of expectation. "Everyone's going to be there to support Bethany's incredible achievement." I clutched my phone tighter. "Mom, you know I've been dealing with a flare-up. It's been hard to move around lately." Surely she remembered my own struggles with mobility, the challenges I faced daily. But the disappointment in her voice was palpable. "Well, you still have time. Bethany needs her family there." The calls continued as the marathon approached, each time variations of the same question. "Are you sure you can't make it?" From my mother, my aunts, even my younger cousins. The marathon was becoming less about Bethany's triumph and more about my perceived failure to overcome my own limitations. I considered not attending at all, but that would only confirm what they already thought: that I was weak, incapable, and couldn't stand to see my sister succeed. So I decided to go, to prove I was strong enough to face their judgment. Shopping for supportive shoes was a lonely affair. I'd always imagined doing this with my mother or sister, but Bethany was busy with her final training, and my mother was too preoccupied with ensuring everything would be perfect for her favorite daughter's big day. The nights before the marathon were filled with anxiety dreams. In one, I arrived at the finish line, and everyone pointed and laughed at my slow pace. In another, the announcer declared Bethany's victory, and my entire family cheered, their joy a stark contrast to my own struggles. My friend Grace suggested I hire a wheelchair assistant just for appearance's sake. She said over coffee, "Nobody has to know you can't really walk the whole way." I considered it briefly but decided against it. "That would only prove I'm as desperate as they think I am," I told her. "Besides, what happens when they start asking questions about my condition? The whole thing would fall apart." "Then you're braver than I am," Grace said, squeezing my hand. "Just remember, their opinions don't define your worth." I nodded, wishing I could believe her, but years of being compared to my sister had left their mark. And as the marathon day approached, I could feel myself shrinking, becoming smaller in anticipation of their judgment. The night before the marathon, I laid out my outfit on the hotel bed. It was stylish and comfortable, perhaps too stylish for someone who might need assistance to get around. For a moment, I considered exchanging it for something less noticeable, something that would help me blend into the background. But then I remembered Grace's words. I deserved to look and feel good, regardless of whether I could run a marathon. As I fell into a restless sleep, I promised myself I would hold my head high tomorrow. I would smile through their pity and laugh off their comments. I would show them that Evelyn Carter didn't need to cross the finish line to be complete. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. The morning of Bethany's marathon dawned bright and clear, mocking my dark mood. I stood in front of the hotel mirror, applying my makeup with trembling hands. Each brushstroke felt like armor I was putting on for battle. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from cousins I hadn't spoken to in months. "Can't wait to see." "You there?" texted cousin Monica. "Are you going to try and run too?" wrote cousin Jessica. I ignored them all. The drive to the stadium was torture. Twice I nearly turned around, concocting excuses in my head. Sudden illness, flat tire, anything seemed better than facing my family alone. But I kept driving, knuckles white against the steering wheel. The stadium parking lot was already filled with cars when I arrived. Families walked arm in arm toward the entrance, women in colorful athletic wear, men in supportive t-shirts. I sat in my car, watching them, postponing the inevitable. "You can do this," I whispered to my reflection in the rearview mirror. "It's just one day." Walking into the stadium felt like walking into a spotlight. Heads turned, eyes widened, whispers began. I clutched my purse tighter and forced a smile. "Evelyn, you made it." My Aunt Patricia approached, her eyes darting behind me, searching for a companion who wasn't there. "Oh, you came alone? Well, that's brave." "Nice to see you too, Aunt Patricia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know, your cousin, Jennifer's friend's son, is single. Very athletic. I could introduce you at the post-race celebration." "I'm fine, thanks." I moved past her before she could see the flush creeping up my neck. I chose a seat near the back, hoping to remain invisible. No such luck. Uncle Steve spotted me and made his way over. "All by yourself, huh?" he said loudly enough for nearby spectators to hear. "Well, more room to stretch out, right?" He laughed at his own joke. From my seat, I could see Bethany being interviewed by reporters outside the stadium. They were laughing, microphones held aloft, sunshine glinting off their medals. Gifts from Bethany, no doubt. I hadn't been asked to join her pre-race festivities. "It's nothing personal," Bethany had explained when I'd confronted her about it. "It's just that my friends and I have been planning this since college. You wouldn't fit in with the group." As if that mattered more than having her only sister by her side. The announcer began speaking, signaling the start of the race. Spectators settled into their seats. I noticed a few empty chairs around me, creating an island of solitude in a sea of cheering families. As Bethany appeared on the jumbotron, looking determined and strong, I felt a lump form in my throat. Her stride was powerful, her focus unwavering. I wondered if she ever thought about me, about my own struggles, about the challenges I faced just getting out of bed each morning. Throughout the race, I couldn't help but notice how often the announcer mentioned perseverance, resilience, and triumph over adversity. Each word felt like a personal attack, a reminder of what I lacked. By the time Bethany crossed the finish line, I was counting the minutes until I could escape to the post-race celebration, where at least there would be food. As spectators filed out of the stadium, I hung back, not wanting to get caught in conversation. I overheard my mother talking to a relative. "No, Evelyn isn't doing much these days. She's focusing on her health." The false brightness in her voice made me cringe. My work as a graphic designer was successful, but in my family's eyes, no professional achievement could compare to athletic prowess. The gap between the race and the celebration stretched before me like a desert. While family groups took photos, on the stadium steps, I retreated to my car, blasting the air conditioning and scrolling mindlessly through social media. Everyone seemed to be part of a group, even online. Happy families at picnics, restaurants, concerts. I tossed my phone onto the passenger seat in frustration. An hour later, I pulled up to the celebration venue, an elegant banquet hall overlooking the city. The same scene played out again. Families emerging from cars, holding hands, adjusting each other's attire. I took a deep breath and stepped out into the sunshine, smoothing down my dress and squaring my shoulders. Just one day, I reminded myself. You can survive anything for one day. but as I walked toward the entrance, a voice in my head whispered back, "Can you really?" The reception hall was a vision in blue and silver, exactly as Bethany had described in her countless planning calls. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over elegantly set tables. A massive dance floor stretched before a stage where a live band was setting up. "Name?" asked the hostess at the entrance. Clipboard in hand. "Evelyn Carter." Her eyes scanned the list. "Ah, yes. You're at table 17. Table 17 turned out to be what could only be described as the singles table, tucked away in a corner far from the bride and groom. My companions included 2 teenage cousins glued to their phones, my recently divorced uncle, Howard, and my grandmother's friend Ruth, who is at least 85 and kept asking if I was the caterer. "No, Ruth, I'm Carol's daughter," I explained for the 3rd time. "Who's Carol?" "Bethany's mother, the marathon runner." "Oh," she squinted at me. "You don't run, do you?" I took a large sip of water. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As guests mingled during the cocktail hour, I made my obligatory rounds, plastering on a smile so fixed my cheeks hurt. At the photo booth set up for families, the photographer looked at me expectantly. "Just me," I said. "Oh," he seemed confused by the concept. "We could wait for your group?" "There isn't one. Can you just take the photo?" The resulting picture showed me standing awkwardly alone against a backdrop of intertwined hearts and the words, "Bethany and Tyler forever." I was heading back to table 17 when I overheard my name from a nearby conversation group. "Poor Evelyn," my mother's friend Barbara was saying. "I thought she and that Mark boy would go the distance. Carol says she's devastated." "Well, she's not getting any younger. The good ones get snatched up quick." I quickened my pace, cheeks burning. I wasn't devastated about Mark. Our relationship had been comfortable but passionless, ending with a mutual recognition that we wanted different things. But my family had created their own narrative. Poor Evelyn, dumped and desperate. Dinner was announced, and guests took their seats. The bridal party made their grand entrance, Bethany and Tyler last, beaming as they stepped onto the dance floor for their first dance. They moved gracefully to their chosen song, "Forever Yours," while guests watched adoringly. After the father-daughter dance, during which I studiously examined my fingernails, it was time for speeches. Tyler's best man went first, followed by Bethany's maid of honor, both sharing touching and funny stories. Then, unexpectedly, Bethany herself took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," she began. "It means so much to see all your faces, all the people who love and support us." Her gaze swept the room until it landed on me. Even my sister Evelyn made it, though she came alone. The way she emphasized "alone" caused a ripple of laughter. I froze, water glass halfway to my lips. "I guess not everyone can be as lucky in life as me," Bethany continued with a smirk that only I could recognize as malicious. More laughter followed. The rest of her speech faded into background noise. As blood rushed to my face, I set down my glass, afraid I might crush it in my grip. At the table beside mine, Monica's 6-year-old twins stared at me. "Why don't you have a partner?" one of them asked loudly. "Mommy says it's because you're too picky." "Is it because you can't run?" added the other. "Emily, Jacob, that's enough," Monica hissed, though she didn't look particularly sorry. Uncle Steve stopped by my table, clapping a meaty hand on my shoulder. "Always the spectator, never the athlete, Evelyn." He chuckled at his own joke, apparently forgetting I wasn't even an athlete. By the time the main course arrived, I had perfected the art of pushing food around my plate while avoiding eye contact. I considered making an early exit. Surely I'd fulfilled my family obligation by now. But the thought of everyone noticing and commenting on my departure kept me glued to my seat. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall where I could finally let out the breath I'd been holding all day. In the mirror, I fixed my makeup, erasing traces of smudged mascara. "You're stronger than this," I told my reflection. "Their opinions don't matter." A woman exited a stall behind me, my cousin Rebecca. "Oh, Evelyn, how are you holding up?" Her voice dripped with fake sympathy. "It must be so hard coming to a celebration right after, well, you know, so brave of you." I forced a smile. "I'm having a great time, actually. Mark and I ended things months ago." Of course," she patted my arm. "Well, there are plenty of fish in the sea, though the pool does get smaller at our age." I was 32, she was 34. Apparently, we were ancient. As I returned to the reception, I made a decision. I wouldn't leave early. I wouldn't hide in corners. I would hold my head high and show them all that I didn't need their pity or their backhanded comments. I would dance, drink sparkling cider, and even catch the damn flowers if they came my way. I was done being the family's favorite target. What I didn't know was that fate had other plans. Plans that would arrive in the form of a stranger about to walk through the reception hall doors. The band had just launched into an upbeat number, and the dance floor was filled with swaying couples when the side door to the reception hall opened. I wouldn't have noticed except that several heads turned in that direction, momentarily distracted from the festivities. A man stepped inside, tall, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a magazine cover. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that suggested both money and taste. He paused at the entrance, scanning the room with confident ease, as if assessing a battlefield before engaging. Conversations nearby faltered as people tried to place him. Was he a friend of the family? A distant relative? No one seemed to know. I watched with mild curiosity from my position at the bar, where I'd been nursing a sparkling water and trying to look purposefully alone rather than abandoned. Our eyes met across the room, and instead of the quick, awkward glance away that usually happens with strangers, he held my gaze. A smile formed on his lips. Not the polite social smile of a wedding guest, but something more deliberate. Before I could process what was happening, he was walking directly toward me, navigating between tables with graceful determination. Guests watched his progress, equally confused. Bethany, in the middle of a conversation with her athletic friends, noticed the ripple of attention and turned to follow everyone's gaze. Her expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion as she watched the stranger approach me. He stopped directly, in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something woody and expensive. "Sorry I'm late, love," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Then he leaned in and kissed my cheek, his hand resting comfortably on the small of my back. Traffic was a nightmare, and then the client meeting ran over. I stared at him, speechless. In the silence that followed, you could have heard a pin drop. Glasses paused midway to lips, forks hovered over plates. My entire family seemed to collectively hold their breath. "You remember me mentioning that big project deadline?" he continued smoothly. "All sorted now. I wouldn't have missed this for the world." From the corner of my eye, I could see Bethany frozen mid-conversation, her celebratory drink tilted dangerously. My mother's mouth had formed a perfect O of surprise. Uncle Steve was squinting at us like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. "This must be your sister's celebration," the stranger said, turning to survey the decorations with appreciation. "Everything looks beautiful, just as you described." I found my voice at last. "Yes, it is," I managed, my mind racing to catch up with what was happening. He extended his hand to the bartender. "Julian Reed, I'm with Evelyn." Julian, even his name sounded like it belonged to someone who sailed yachts and summered in exclusive locations. As if on cue, my mother materialized beside us, her social smile firmly in place but her eyes wide with questions. "Mom," I said, heart pounding. This is Julian. Julian, this is my mother, Carol. Mrs. Carter? Julian said, taking her hand. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Evelyn speaks so highly of you. Does she? My mother looked between us, clearly trying to reconcile this new development with her understanding of my life. I don't believe Evelyn's mentioned you before. We've been keeping things quiet, Julian replied smoothly. Early days and all that. But when Evelyn invited me to the celebration, I couldn't resist the chance to meet her family. How did you two meet? My mother pressed, ever the interrogator. Without missing a beat, Julian launched into a story about a gallery opening where I'd been showcasing some of my design work. He described specific pieces that could plausibly have been mine, mentioned mutual friends who didn't exist, and even recalled our first date at a restaurant I'd actually been to once. The detail was impressive and completely fabricated. You should have told us you were bringing someone, my mother said to me, her tone caught between accusation and delight. I wasn't sure he could make it, I replied, finding my footing in this unexpected charade. His schedule is pretty unpredictable. International clients, Julian added with a modest shrug. The price of success, unfortunately. My mother was practically glowing now. Well, you simply must come meet Robert, Evelyn's father, and Bethany. Of course, the marathon runner will want to know who's crashed her special day. She laughed. All earlier condescension toward me evaporated as she led us toward the head table. Julian leaned close to my ear. Just go with it, he whispered. I saw what was happening from the service entrance. Nobody deserves to be humiliated. Like that. Who are you? I whispered back. Photographer's assistant at the event next door, on break. I'll explain more later. Before I could respond, we were standing before Bethany, whose perfect smile had turned brittle at the edges. Bethany, congratulations, Julian said, extending his hand to my sister. Your celebration is absolutely stunning. Evelyn showed me some of the planning pictures, but they didn't do it justice. Bethany shook his hand automatically. Thank you, she said, her eyes narrowing as they flicked between us. Funny, Evelyn never mentioned she was seeing anyone. That's my fault, Julian said. I've been traveling so much for work, we hardly had time to tell anyone. I insisted she keep our RSVP as just her since I wasn't sure I could make it back. From London in time. London? My father said, appearing beside Bethany. What line of work are you in, son? Investment consulting, sir, helping companies expand into European markets. My father's expression brightened considerably. Unlike my creative career, which he'd always viewed with skepticism, finance was a profession he understood and respected. Robert Carter, he said, offering a firm handshake. Wish we'd known you were coming. We could have seated you properly. Not a problem at all, Julian assured him. I'm just happy I made it in time for the reception. As my parents and Bethany peppered Julian with questions, all of which he answered with remarkable consistency and confidence, I noticed the shift in how they looked at me. Suddenly, I wasn't the pathetic single sister anymore. I was the woman who had attracted this successful, handsome man. My value had instantly increased in their eyes, not because of anything I had done, but because a man had chosen me. The realization should have angered me, but in that moment, all I felt was relief and a strange, bubbling gratitude toward this mysterious stranger who had swooped in to rescue me from my family's judgment. Would you like to dance? Julian asked after successfully navigating the family inquisition. The band was playing a slow song. Couples swayed together on the dance floor. I'd love to, I replied, allowing him to lead me away from my still curious family. As we stepped onto the dance floor, Julian's arms circled my waist with practiced ease. I think we're convincing them, he murmured, guiding me into a gentle rhythm. Just relax and follow my lead. Why are you doing this? I asked, still bewildered by his intervention. His expression softened. Let's just say I've been in your shoes. Family can be the cruelest audience sometimes. As we danced, I felt dozens of eyes on us, reassessing everything they thought they knew about Evelyn Carter. And for the first time that day, I smiled, really smiled, at the beautiful absurdity of it all. Julian was an excellent dancer. Despite never having practiced together, we moved in perfect synchrony, as if we'd been partners for years. His hand on my back guided me confidently through turns and steps I didn't know I could execute. "Where did you learn to dance like this?" I whispered as he effortlessly spun me. "Ballroom classes in college," he replied. "My mother insisted. Said no son of hers would clump around a dance floor like a wounded buffalo." I laughed, the sound surprising me. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had all day. "So, Julian Reed," I said quietly as we swayed to the music, "tell me about yourself, the real version, not the one you just fed my family. What do you want to know?" "Start with why you're really here." He glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. "I'm assisting Leo Taylor, the photographer handling the VIP section. I was setting up some equipment when I saw you through the connecting hallway. You looked, I don't know, trapped. Then I overheard your sister's comment about you coming alone, saw everyone laughing, and you decided to play hero?" I tried to keep the skepticism from my voice. More like I recognized a familiar situation. My cousin's anniversary party last year. My family's just as bad. When are you settling down, Julian? That artist girlfriend wasn't suitable anyway. Your brother's already given your parents 3 grandchildren. He mimicked the voices with startling accuracy. The artist girlfriend? Sounds interesting. She was, still is, I imagine. She moved to Berlin 6 months ago. We tried long distance, but... He shrugged. Some things aren't meant to last. As we danced, we exchanged whispered life stories. I learned he was 34, had studied photography and business, and was building a portfolio while working commercial gigs to pay the bills. He had grown up in New York with parents who had his life mapped out: prestigious university, corporate career, marriage to someone from their social circle. His decision to pursue photography had created a rift that was still healing. I told him about growing up in Bethany's shadow, my graphic design career that my family dismissed as drawing pictures on computers, and my recent breakup with Mark. He wanted someone more traditional, I explained. Someone who'd be content, with dinner parties and quiet evenings at home. When I got offered that 3-month project in Vancouver, he said a real relationship couldn't survive that kind of separation. Julian snorted. "Sounds like you dodged a bullet." "That's what my friend Grace said. My family acted like I'd lost my last chance at happiness." The song ended, but Julian kept hold of my hand as we left the dance floor. "We should probably circulate," he said, "make our relationship look established for the next hour." We moved through the reception as a unit, his hand often at the small of my back or entwined with mine. We created detailed backstories on the fly, each of us picking up narrative. Threads the other started. "Remember that little Cuban place on Elm Street?" I would say. "With the grumpy waiter who kept correcting our pronunciation?" Julian would add without missing a beat. "And the mojitos that changed your life." I still dream about that mojito. The more we elaborated, the more real our fictional relationship felt. We had inside jokes, favorite memories, even a good-natured disagreement about whether jazz or classical music made better background for creative work. He preferred jazz. I argued for classical. My mother watched us with undisguised approval, occasionally touching my arm to whisper comments like, "He's so attentive," or, "You two look perfect together." My father engaged Julian in lengthy conversations about investment, strategies, and economic forecasts, topics Julian navigated with surprising knowledge. Even Aunt Patricia, who had earlier pitted my single status, now wanted my advice on how to meet quality men. "You must tell me your secret," she insisted, eyeing Julian as he fetched us both fresh drinks from the bar. Only Bethany remained skeptical. I caught her watching us narrowly several times. as if trying to spot the seams in our performance. When Julian excused himself to use the restroom, she cornered me near the dessert table. "So, where have you been hiding him?" she demanded. "And don't say he's been traveling. Nobody keeps a relationship this serious a complete secret." "We've been taking things slow," I replied, helping myself to a mini eclair. "Not everyone needs to parade their relationship in front of an audience." Her eyes narrowed. "What's his middle name?" "James." "His birthday?" "October 22nd. "Favorite food?" "Thai, specifically pad see ew with extra greens." I'd never improvised so quickly in my life, but the answers came effortlessly. Julian and I had covered these details while dancing, anticipating exactly this kind of interrogation. Bethany pursed her lips, frustrated by my ready answers. "Well, he seems too good to be true, and you know what they say about things that seem too good to be true." "Maybe you're just not used to seeing me happy," I replied, surprised by my own boldness. Before she could respond, Julian returned, sliding an arm around my waist. "Everything okay here?" he asked, his tone pleasant, but his eyes watchful. "Perfect," I said. "Bethany was just saying how surprised she is by our relationship." "Good surprised, I hope," Julian said with a charming smile. "Though I'm the lucky one. Your sister is extraordinary, you know. Her design work alone is incredible. Have you seen the campaign she created for the Global Arts Project? Revolutionary approach to visual storytelling." He went on to describe in impressive detail a project I had indeed worked on last year, but had rarely discussed with my family, who showed little interest in my career achievements. The fact that Julian had somehow gleaned this information and was now championing my work to my dismissive sister made something warm unfurl in my chest. Bethany's expression wavered between suspicion and surprise. "I didn't realize you were so familiar with Evelyn's work," she said. "How could I not be? It's a huge part of who she is." The way Julian looked at me then, with genuine admiration, made me momentarily forget this was all pretense. As the evening progressed, I spotted a familiar face across the room. Mark, my ex-boyfriend, with his new girlfriend, Chloe. My mother had mentioned he might attend. He and Tyler had been college roommates. But seeing him still sent an uncomfortable jolt through me. Julian noticed my sudden tension. "What's wrong?" I nodded discreetly toward Mark. "Ex-boyfriend, 2 o'clock, blue shirt, blonde date." Julian assessed them without being obvious. "Ah, the traditional guy. He looks exactly as I imagined. Very conventional." "Be nice," I murmured, though I appreciated his subtle support. "Should we say hello? Establish our blissful couple?" I hesitated. I don't know if... Too late. Mark had spotted us and was heading our way, Chloe in tow. "Evelyn," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Good to see you." "You too," I replied automatically. "This is Julian. Julian, this is Mark and Chloe." Julian shook Mark's hand firmly. "Pleasure. I've heard a lot about you." Mark looked between us, clearly trying to place Julian in the timeline of our breakup. "Funny, I haven't heard anything about you." "We've been keeping a low profile," Julian said easily, his arm settling around my waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. "New relationships, you know how it is." Chloe, clearly uncomfortable, offered a small smile. "Bethany's celebration is beautiful. The decorations are amazing." I returned her smile, grateful for the neutral topic. "They are." Bethany worked with that event planner from the magazine feature last spring. As we made uncomfortable small talk, I could feel Mark's eyes on Julian's hand at my waist, on our easy physical proximity. Whatever he had expected to see today, perhaps me alone and miserable, this wasn't it. "Well, we should get back to our table," Mark finally said. "Good to meet you, Julian." "Likewise," Julian replied. "Enjoy the rest of the evening." As they walked away, Julian leaned close to my ear. "You're well rid of him," he murmured. The way he kept adjusting his collar. Classic insecurity tell. I stifled a laugh. Stop analyzing my ex. Can't help it. Photographer's eye. We notice details. He guided me toward the glass doors leading to the venue's balcony. Come on, I think we've put on enough of a show for now. Let's get some air. Outside, the evening air was cool and refreshing after the stuffy reception hall. Fairy lights twined around the balcony railing, casting a soft glow over the manicured gardens below. In the distance, the city lights twinkled, a perfect galaxy on dark water. We stood side by side at the railing, a comfortable silence between us. For the first time that day, I felt like I could breathe properly. Thank you, I said finally. What you did in there, I don't know how to repay you. Julian smiled. Consider it my good deed for the year. Besides, it's been the most entertaining celebration I've ever attended, and I've worked dozens. Still, it was kind, especially since you don't know me at all. He turned to face me, his expression thoughtful. Sometimes strangers see us more clearly than the people who are supposed to know us best. Your family looks at you and sees what they expect to see. I looked at you and saw someone drowning in their expectations. The accuracy of his assessment made my throat tight. They've always had a very specific idea of who I should be. Bethany fits the mold perfectly. I never have. And yet you keep showing up, hoping they'll finally see you. Pathetic, right? Human, he corrected gently. We all want to be seen for who we really are, accepted, valued. The vulnerability of the moment hung between us. Here was someone who had known me for mere hours, yet seemed to understand parts of me my family never had. Julian leaned against the railing. For what it's worth, from what I've seen today, they're the ones missing out, not seeing how remarkable you are. You don't know me, I reminded him, though the words lacked conviction. I know enough. I know you're creative and successful. In a challenging industry. I know you've got quick wit and resilience. I know you chose authenticity over an unfulfilling relationship. Those aren't small things, Evelyn. The way he said my name, like it was something precious, made my heart flutter in a way it hadn't in years. We were standing closer now, the space between us charged with something neither of us had anticipated. Julian's gaze dropped to my lips, and I found myself swaying toward him, drawn by an invisible current. The balcony door swung open with a bang. We jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Bethany stood in the doorway, her celebratory dress gleaming in the fairy lights. There you are, she said, her voice sharp. Mom's looking for you. It's almost time for the speeches. Her eyes moved suspiciously between Julian and me. What are you two doing out here anyway? Just getting some fresh air, I said, hoping. The darkness hid my flushed cheeks. It's hot inside. Uh-huh. Bethany clearly didn't believe me. Well, come on, everyone's waiting. As we followed her back inside, Julian whispered, That was close. Your sister has terrible timing. I suppressed a smile. Always has. What I didn't say was that for the first time in my life, I was grateful for Bethany's interruption, because whatever was happening between Julian and me was no longer just pretend, and that terrified me more than facing my family alone ever had. The award ceremony was a predictably awkward affair. Despite being in a relationship, I was still pushed into the group of eligible women by my enthusiastic aunts. You're not engaged yet, Aunt Patricia insisted, practically shoving me forward. Julian watched from the sidelines, clearly amused by my discomfort. I shot him a look that promised retribution, which only made his grin wider. Bethany stood on the stage, her back to the crowd, holding a bouquet of flowers she'd received for her achievement, poised to toss it to the single women. I positioned myself at the edge of the group, planning to make a minimal effort. But when Bethany tossed the flowers, she turned slightly, her eyes finding mine with deliberate precision. The bouquet sailed directly toward me, giving me no choice but to catch it or be hit in the face. Reflexively, my hands went up. The bundle of white roses and baby's breath landed squarely in my arms. A cheer went up. My mother clapped ecstatically. Bethany's smile was tight. "Look at that," she announced. "Maybe Evelyn will be next after all. Julian better watch out." The crowd laughed. Julian raised his glass in acknowledgement, playing along perfectly. As the party continued, we maintained our couple charade, dancing to upbeat songs, sharing dessert, posing for photos. Every now and then, I would catch Julian looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. Something beyond the act we were putting on. We were sitting at a quiet corner table, taking a break from the performance, when Cousin Monica approached, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "Evelyn, can I talk to you for a second?" she asked, her eyes flicking to Julian. "Sure," I said, confused by her somber tone. "Is everything okay?" "Actually, I just ran into Liam from the VIP section team next door. We used to work together." Monica's gaze shifted meaningfully to Julian. He mentioned their photographer had an assistant named Julian. My stomach dropped. Julian's expression remained neutral, but I felt him tense beside me. "What a coincidence," he said smoothly. "It's a common name." Monica wasn't buying it. "He described you perfectly, right down to the navy suit." Julian and I exchanged glances. The game was up. "Monica, I can explain," I began, but she was already backing away. "I'm going to get Bethany," she said. "She should know someone's crashing. Her celebration." Before we could stop her, Monica had hurried to the head table where Bethany was chatting with her friends. We watched as she whispered in Bethany's ear. Bethany's head snapped up, her eyes finding us across the room. "This isn't good," Julian murmured. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I never meant to drag you into family drama." "Hey, I volunteered, remember?" He squeezed my hand. "Don't worry, whatever happens, we'll handle it." But I wasn't prepared for the spectacle Bethany created. She marched across the reception hall, Monica and two friends in tow, her celebratory dress parting the crowd like the bow of a ship. "You?" she said, pointing at Julian when she reached our table. "You're not Evelyn's boyfriend. You work at the event next door. You're a complete stranger who crashed my celebration." Heads turned. Conversation stopped. The DJ, sensing drama awkwardly, lowered the music volume. Julian stood. "I can explain." "And you," Bethany continued, turning to me, her voice rising. "You brought a complete stranger to my celebration, pretended he was your boyfriend. What is wrong with you?" My face burned as guests gathered to watch the confrontation. My parents pushed through the crowd, confusion and alarm on their faces. "What's going on?" my father demanded. "Evelyn's boyfriend is a fraud," Bethany announced loudly. "He works at another event. She's so desperate, she convinced a complete stranger to pretend to be her date." The murmurs began immediately. I saw the pity returning to people's eyes, worse now because I'd been caught in a lie. Uncle Steve shook his head. Aunt Patricia covered her mouth in shock. My mother looked devastated, as if I'd personally betrayed her. "Is this true?" my father asked Julian. Julian hesitated, clearly torn between honesty and protecting me. "Sir, it's not what it looks—" "Yes, it's true," I interrupted, standing up. My heart was pounding, but suddenly I was tired of lies. The ones Julian and I had created today, and the ones I'd been telling myself for years about my family. A hush fell over the gathered crowd. Even Bethany seemed surprised by my candor. "Julian is a photographer's assistant at the event next door. We met today. He saw how you all were treating me and decided to help." I took a deep breath. "But that's not the real issue here, is it?" "Evelyn," my mother warned. "This isn't the place." "It's exactly the place," I continued. "For years, I've let this family make me feel like a failure because I don't fit your narrow definition of success. Because I chose a career in art instead of a more stable one. Because I value independence over traditional expectations. Because I'd rather be alone than with someone who doesn't appreciate who I really am. I looked at Bethany. You announced to everyone that I came alone, like it was something shameful. You've always treated me like I'm less than you, because I marched to my own drum. You didn't even want me involved in your planning because I didn't fit the group. Bethany's face flushed. That's not fair. It's completely fair. And Mom, Dad, I turned to my parents. You've always compared us, always made me feel like I was the disappointing daughter because I wasn't exactly like Bethany. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? To always feel like you're not enough? My voice broke slightly, but I pressed on. Today, the moment you thought I had a successful boyfriend, suddenly I was worthy of your respect. Suddenly my career was interesting. My choice is valid. What does that say about how you value me as a person? The reception hall was silent now. Even the servers had paused their rounds. So yes, Julian and I met today, and yes, we pretended to be a couple. But the real lie has been pretending that your approval matters more to me than my own happiness. I turned to Julian. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Julian's eyes were warm with admiration. Don't apologize. That was long overdue. Bethany's face had turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you turn my celebration into your therapy session? This is my day, not yours. Everything is always about you, Evelyn, I said quietly. That's the problem. I want you both to leave, she hissed. Now, before I have security escort you out. I looked around at the shocked faces of my family and my mother's distress, my father's discomfort. For a moment, I felt a stab of regret for causing a scene at my sister's celebration. But then I remembered years of subtle put-downs, of being made to feel less than, of shrinking myself to avoid their judgment. Fine, I said. Congratulations on your accomplishment. I hope it brings you joy. I turned to Julian. I think we've outstayed our welcome. He nodded, offering me his arm with a formal gesture that somehow transformed our exit from an expulsion into a choice. Shall we? With my head held high, I took his arm, and we walked through the parting crowd toward the exit. No one tried to stop us. No one spoke. The only sound was the click of my heels on the polished floor and the faint rustle of my dress as we pushed through the double doors into the cool night air. I expected to feel shame or regret. Instead, I felt something unexpected: freedom. The night air hit my face like a splash of cold water, bringing clarity after the heated confrontation inside. For a moment, Julian and I stood in silence on the venue steps, the muffled sounds of the reception resuming behind us. Well, Julian finally said. That was a disaster, I offered. I was going to say magnificent, he grinned. You are magnificent. I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that released some of the tension. I just blew up at my entire family at my sister's celebration. I'll never hear the end of this. Probably not, he agreed. But was it worth it? I considered the question. Seriously? Yes, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. It was worth it. Julian checked his watch. My shift at the event next door ended 20 minutes ago. Are you hungry? There's a diner about 10 minutes from here that serves breakfast all night. The idea of pancakes and coffee suddenly seemed like the perfect epilogue to this strange day. I'm starving, actually. I was too nervous to eat anything inside. Pancakes it is, then. We drove separately, meeting in the diner's parking lot. The place was nearly empty at this hour, just a few truckers at the counter and a group of teenagers, in a corner booth, coming from or going to some late-night adventure. We slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl seats squeaking beneath us. A tired-looking waitress named Brenda brought menus and coffee without being asked. You look like... You need this, she said, pouring the steaming liquid into thick white mugs. You have no idea, I replied. Once we'd ordered chocolate chip pancakes for me, Denver omelet for Julian, we finally had a moment to process everything that had happened. I should be mortified, I said, warming my hands on the coffee mug. But I mostly feel relieved. Sometimes the truth is like that, Julian replied. Scary to face, but freeing once it's out. I've never stood up to them like that before. I always just took it, tried to be what they wanted. What changed? I considered the question. You, partly. Seeing myself through your eyes today, someone who valued me without conditions, without history. It made me realize how little I valued myself. Julian's expression softened. For what it's worth, I wasn't pretending when I talked about how impressive you are. Your work, your independence, your quick thinking. All real. Even though you've known me for less than 6 hours? Sometimes 6 hours is enough to see someone clearly. Our food arrived, steaming and generously portioned. As we ate, we talked, more about our lives, no longer needing to maintain a fictional relationship, but genuinely interested in learning about each other. Julian told me about his photography, showing me some of his work on his phone, stunning black and white portraits that captured raw emotion in everyday moments. These are incredible, I said, swiping through the images. You have a real gift. Thanks. My parents still think it's a hobby I'll outgrow, he shrugged. Maybe someday they'll come to a gallery showing and finally get it, or maybe they won't. I'm learning to be okay with either outcome. That's what I need to learn, I admitted. How to be okay with disapproval. It gets easier, and it helps to have people in your corner who get you. Do you have that? I thought of Grace, my supportive colleagues, the clients who valued my creative vision. Yes. I've just been giving those relationships less weight than they deserve. As the night deepened around us, the diner's fluorescent lights creating a bubble of warmth against the darkness outside, something shifted between us. The pretense was gone, but the connection remained, stronger now because it was real. I should probably give you my real number, Julian said as we finished our meal, in case you need a fake boyfriend for another family event. I laughed. I think my family events are off the table for a while, but I'd like your number anyway. We exchanged phones, each entering our contact information. When he handed mine back, I saw he'd saved himself as Julian, real boyfriend application pending. Confident, aren't you? I teased. Hopeful, he corrected with a smile that made my heart skip. On the drive home to my apartment, I expected the emotional crash to hit. Regret, embarrassment, anxiety about family fallout. Instead, I felt strangely peaceful. Whatever came next. With my family would be difficult, but at least it would be honest. My phone buzzed with texts and missed calls from my parents, from relatives, even one from Bethany. I turned it off. They could wait until tomorrow. There was one message I did. Read, though, from Julian. Home safe. I had a great time tonight despite the dramatic finale. Or maybe because of it. Would you like to have dinner sometime? A real date this time. No family drama required. I smiled as I typed my reply. Home safe. Dinner sounds perfect. Let's start over. No pretending this time. In the days that followed, the family fallout was exactly as messy as I'd expected. My mother called daily, oscillating between hurt accusations and tentative attempts to understand. My father was more distant, uncomfortable with emotional confrontation. Bethany didn't speak to me at all. Some relatives surprised me, though. Aunt Patricia called to say she'd always admired my independence, but didn't know how to express it. Uncle Steve sent an awkward but sincere email apologizing for his thoughtless comments over the years. Even Cousin Monica reached out, admitting she sometimes envied my freedom from conventional expectations. Julian and I had our first real date a week after the celebration. Dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Nothing like the fictional one we'd created in our fake relationship stories. We talked for hours, discovering genuine common ground and interesting differences. The connection we'd felt during our charade had been real, even if the circumstances weren't. By the time Bethany and Tyler returned from their honeymoon, Julian and I had been on 5 dates. When she finally called me, her anger had cooled enough for a civil conversation. "What you did was incredibly selfish," she said without preamble. "What you've been doing my entire life was incredibly hurtful," I countered. "I'm not apologizing for finally standing up for myself." After a long silence, she sighed. "I never realized you felt that way." "You never asked." Another silence. "Are you really dating that photographer guy now?" I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. "Yes, and his name is Julian." "Mom will be thrilled," she said, and I detected the ghost of humor in her voice. 6 months later, Julian and I attended my cousin Jessica's baby shower together, our first family event as a genuine couple. The reception was mixed. Some relatives welcomed us warmly, others maintained a cool distance. My mother was cautiously supportive, having gradually accepted that her relationship with me needed to change if she wanted to remain in my life. As Julian and I slow danced at the after-party, yes, my family throws after-parties for baby showers, he pulled me close and whispered, "Remember when we first danced like this, pretending to be in love?" "We were pretty convincing," I replied, resting my head on his shoulder. "I wasn't entirely pretending," he admitted. "Even then, I was already falling for you." "Even when I was having a public meltdown at a celebration?" "Especially then. You were magnificent, remember?" I smiled against his shoulder. "We have the strangest origin story." "The best ones always are." As we swayed to the music, surrounded by my imperfect family in this imperfect moment, I realized something important. Happiness wasn't about gaining everyone's approval or meeting external expectations. It was about being true to yourself and finding people who valued that truth. Sometimes it takes a stranger to help you see yourself clearly, and sometimes that stranger becomes the person who knows you best of all. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family expectations or found connection in an unexpected place? Share your story in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey of self-discovery and unexpected romance, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to be their authentic self. Thank you for joining me today.